my background. Like I said, I remember the first time I got drunk. My mother was off to work. My dad was never home. He was an attorney and a practicing alcoholic till I was 21. So myself and two of my friends, Ken and Paul, came over to my house, and we of course had the obligatory huge liquor cabinet, and we got absolutely shit-faced. And the next day, of course, I threw up half the night and pulled the I'm sick and I can't go to school routine. And my mother, because she had to go off to work, was buying it, and then the phone rang. And it was one of the other parents and one of the other guys. And the jig was up. I got the obligatory wait till your father got home. Well, that never came. There was no accountability for me from that point on. In high school, I drank a lot. I figured out that beer was a lot easier to get than to talk to girls when I was sober. So the drinking increased, and I'll tell you guys, for me, I quit sports in high school because of my alcoholism. I discovered that beer was a lot easier to obtain than to show up for practice. My prom, which a lot of you might remember fondly, my prom job was to get the beer in the hotel room. And I was okay with that because, that's the mode I was in. I went to college at Northern Arizona University, and that just accelerated my drinking. I lived with a guy named Mongo, and Mongo's rule was, don't wake him up before 10, because he was usually out drinking the night before. I lasted a semester at NAU, and they asked me to continue my education somewhere else, which I did, because it was everybody else's fault. By the way, shortly after that first semester, I got my first DUI when I was 18. I've got a total of 8 of them in my career. I am a convicted felon. I've got an assault record that's pretty long as well, and I'll get to that. I got into the bar and restaurant business where it was acceptable to go out and get shit-faced and do a lot of drugs. I speak enough Spanish to, buy a kilo of cocaine in Spanish, and I got real good at that. And all along the way I was getting DUIs. I did a geographic, I moved for a girl from here to Ohio, of all places. I got a DUI in Cleveland, and I'll never forget this one. This is one of the funniest ones. I was coming home from some sales call. I got pulled over. I got literally taken into some small town. I was so fucked up, I still don't remember what town it was. I think it was Vermilion. And literally it was a 2-jail cell. And I got my one phone call, and I, by chance, get the owner of the company I was working for. And he said, "You're where?" And I go, "I'm in jail." He literally started laughing so hard he dropped the fucking phone. Okay, so it continues. There's no repercussions for my drinking and driving. And Ohio is just like it is here or any other state. At that time, they just write you a ticket and they let you go. I got an attorney. I got it thrown out. So long story short, I got another one up in Toledo, Ohio. Same deal. Nothing happened. Paid a fine. So this goes on for a year. I moved back to Arizona. The woman I was engaged to was a bigger drinker than I was. So she had a problem. When she got drunk, she had a habit of sleeping with other people. So that didn't work out too well. And I was, of course, the last one to know. So I moved back to Arizona, and I go back into the restaurant business for another decade, pick up a couple of more DUIs, but they begin to get more violence in between. A lot of bar fights. A lot of when I drink, I'm 6'4" and 240 pounds, and I got a mouth on me, and that got me into a lot of trouble, and I got my ass beaten a lot. One of the times, I was living in Toledo, and we had literally been drinking for 14 hours. We're leaving the bar, some guys are coming in, and I shoved one of them, and it was on, and I got my nose broken again. I've had my nose broken like 5 times. Just ended up in the hospital, myself and the guy that I worked with, that I was drinking with. So we show up for work on Monday. We both got black eyes, broken noses. Once again, we're in Ohio, so they have a different attitude of alcohol, at least that crowd that I ran with. So my life was consumed by drinking, then more drugs came into the scene. I blew through an engagement because of my alcoholism. It started degrading around 30. My friends were getting married, they were having families. I was still working in bars and managing restaurants and this and that. But I was able to hold a job, so I wasn't bad. I always would rationalize it. Well, I'm the top salesman, or I'm this or I'm that. And I hung out with guys that drank just like I did, and gals that drank just like I did. My friend Kelly that's here, I've known Kelly 15 years.
20,
18, almost 18 years. Yeah. She can attest to, she's a normie, but she saw the behavior and the degradation of my alcoholism and the increase in the drug use. And I guess the reason why today's my belly button birthday, I'm just grateful to be alive. But the program will give you back so much. I know none of you want to be here. Let's just be honest, okay? The last fucking place we want to be is in rehab or in a sober living facility going to IOP. And that's just, I have to be honest. I got sober in jail and locked up. So this is a marketable improvement. This is a disease that in my family goes back generations. I have done things that I'm very ashamed of. I've done my steps. I have a sponsor. I go to a meeting every day, and on the 7th day, I go to Bible study, and I'm a Jew. But it's the willingness to change. And I violated my regular standard probation. I'll never forget this. I closed a big deal. I go and get the obligatory 8-ball. I'm driving on Camelback Road. I get to Hayden. It's dusk. I turn my lights on. There's a cop behind me. I got a tail light out. And I had decided, because of my alcoholism, that my probation officer, regular standard probation, if any of you have been there, it's the easiest form of probation. You show up once a month, they say, hi, how are you? You say, fine, see you later, and you pay your fine. I had decided that my probation officer was a bitch. Now, I wasn't the smartest drunk. I'm not the smartest guy sitting here, because I lived around the corner from the probation office. So I stopped reporting. She came over one day. I told her, go fuck yourself. I'm not coming back. And I thought that there's not going to be any repercussions. So back to the story. So there's a cop behind me. The cop follows me, flips his lights on. I take a right by the baseball field. I throw the 8-ball out. For some reason he didn't see that. First thing I do, I had a moment of clarity. I said, look, I'm on probation and I've absconded from my probation. I got to spend the next 9 months in county jail here. And that's when I first got exposed to Alcoholics Anonymous. Because maybe some of you have been in jail here. The only time when you're unsentenced that you get to leave your little cell is for religious, church, AA, CA, NA. If it had an A after it, I went just to get out of my cell. Because with my record, I was in the towers most of the time, or Durango jail. But that was my exposure to AA, and it still took more before I was ready to realize. A couple of years go by after that. I get off of probation, which is a miracle. They put me on IPS when I got out. I get an old guy who'd been with the county probation for 30 years, and the first thing he said to me, he goes, "I own your ass. Don't fuck with me, and I won't fuck with you. You show up, you do what I tell you to do, and you'll complete this. And I suggest you start going to AA, outside of what was court ordered." So that was kind of like a bang on the head, but I'm a hard-headed alcoholic. So, I'm working for a company. I never worked a Friday afternoon in my life. I mean, I was the worst employee in the world because I was hungover on Mondays. Friday afternoons, I was gone. I was drinking, doing everything that I did. So the moment of clarity, I'm drinking all day. I'm on my way home by the tortilla factory. Those of you that know Old Town Scottsdale, there used to be a Jack in the Box there. Now, if anyone tells you that alcoholism is not a disease of the mind and a spiritual disease, I don't agree with that, okay? Because when I drink, I'm insane. All right, so I'm drunker than hell. I pull around to pay for my food. An off-duty county sheriff is working security. He comes out. When I drank, I became an attorney. So he says, "You've been drinking tonight." What's the first thing that I said? "Go fuck yourself." The conversation went downhill from there. So he's like, "Well, you know, blah, blah, when you get your..." I said, "I'm not going anywhere until I get my food." He's standing, I'm driving a brand new car. I'm the top salesman in my company. From the outside, it looks great. But I'm a miserable alcoholic, drug addict, full-blown, you know. So as I start to pull forward, he pulls his gun. So I pull mine. Because when I drink, I sell drugs and I carry a gun. All right? That's not normal, all right, to carry a gun and to point it at a cop. When I drink, I don't make good choices. There's a disconnect in my mind. And fortunately, he didn't shoot me, and I didn't shoot at him. Half of Scottsdale PD shows up, or I thought so at the time. Now, once again, I didn't have there were no consequences up till that point. You know, I always would pay the fine, blah, 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 bullshit, get out. Well, they took me down, and this is when it was 1-0, so this is 12 and a half, 13 years ago. I'm blowing, I finally get a 1-0. Okay, I'm thinking, hey, they're going to write me a ticket, and I'm going to go home. You know, I'm going to call a cab and go home. No. They had me held over. Next morning, I'm going to Madison, the old Madison jail. Now, those of you that aren't from here, jail's not fun anywhere. This was a shithole with rats this big. Right? I had been there several times. So, all I'm thinking about in my sick alcoholic head is, I got tickets to Brooks and Dunn today. I got to get out of here, and I got a date. I got a date that I'm not paying by the hour to be with me. Right? That's how sick I am. That's alcoholism in Jeff Henry's head. I carry a gun. I want to know what you got because I want it. All right? So he has me transferred down to the Madison jail, where I spend the next 10 hours being moved around from one cell to another until I get to see a judge. All right? Start reading the charges against me, the least of which is DUI. Okay? And anyone tells you that they can't bring up your whole record, they're full of shit. All right? And I'm going to tell you that right now. If you're thinking, I got one DUI, I got room for another in the next 4 years, or I'm past my 5 years, that's bullshit. All right? They bring all that up. He's reading this attempted murder, felon with in possession of a handgun, bail's $180,000. Now, did I tell you that my mother's an Al-Anon Nazi at the time? All right? The one time she bails me out was this time. And that was, she had to put up her house in Scottsdale, very nice house, to bond me out, all right? I didn't get out till Sunday. I'm still thinking, fuck them, you know, I shouldn't, this is all wrong, this and that. So a couple weeks go by, I go into court in Scottsdale. My dad sends one of his law partners down. They go in to meet with the county attorney. He comes out and he says, first of all, what's this about the DEA showing up at your house a couple of months ago? I thought nobody knew about all that. And I say to him in my best attorney voice, well, I didn't think it was relevant to the case. That's how sick I am when I drink. I know everything. I'm the smartest motherfucker in the zip code when I drink and do drugs. I know it all. He says, well, they're looking for 7 years. That's your best offer right now. That's when the clarity hit. I'm fucked. I'm 41 years old. I'm living in a one-room apartment by myself. I've blown through 2 engagements. It all comes back just like I'm seeing my whole life in front of me. And I seriously almost lost bowel control because I was like, I can't do 7 years, you know? So I walk into the courtroom, and who's the judge? A guy I went to high school with. And he looks at me, hey, how you doing, Jeff? I said, Judge Melton, nice to see you. He starts reading the charges off, and literally there were 2 pages of charges. And I pled not guilty, and by the grace of God, I ended up doing 3 months 3 months in jail. I didn't get the 7 years. And I still, to this day, don't know how that happened. Because they were preparing me. I was going for 7 years. And we got into court, one thing led to another. But that's what it took for me to realize I'm an alcoholic and I'm a drug addict. I had to go down that road, and it was 20 years of misery, apologizing, shame. And I was exposed to AA. I was your age, 21. When my dad, 21, 22. I went to the Meadows. My dad got sober at the Meadows. I was exposed to it then. My first DUI, I never went to any of the AA meetings. I just signed the sheet. So that's what it was like. That's what it took for me. I still had one more left in me after that. What's it like today? Well, I have a license, which for an alcoholic like me is a big deal. I rode the bus for 2 years. And that was probably the most humbling experience of my life, because it is a privilege to drive. I'm an employee now that's a valued employee, I like to think so, for a Fortune 500 company. I have a boss that knows he can rely on me. When I tell somebody that I'm going to do something, I do it. I have met the most wonderful men and women in my life in the rooms of AA, and I've been blessed that people like my friend Kelly here have stuck by me, because I wasn't worthy of the friendship that she's shown me over the years, because my bottom was pretty bad. I was functioning, but I was dishonorable as a liar, a cheat, a thief. And I went finally, I got a sponsor, I read the big book, and I did the steps, and I stopped trying to outthink the world. This is a wonderful program. It's got steps to it. I'm going to suggest to everybody here, if you don't already have a sponsor, get one. Do the steps, do them quickly. Don't fuck around with them. This is a disease that will kill you. I went to 4 funerals last December. 3 of the 4 were people with long-term sobriety that relapsed and died. And the commonality is they stop going to meetings. The meetings start slowing down and life gets busy. And I can't tell the phrase, don't let the life AA gave you get in the way of life. AA's recovery is the best thing I've ever done in my life. It's also the hardest thing that I've ever done in my life. I've worked the steps several times. I have a sponsor. I have 2 sponsors. When I have a decision to make, I pick up the phone. I call Tim, I call my other friends. What do you think about this? And when I get to 3 people that have a different opinion from me, then I go the other way. Because even in sobriety, I've learned that I don't make some good choices. But the one thing I've done perfectly for 10 years is I haven't had a drink or a drug. And I'm pretty sure today I'll go to bed without drinking or drugging. And I owe that to this program. One last thing. I got real sick last year and ended up in a coma, and I woke up out of the coma, and I don't have much family. And there was a card from one of the meetings I attend 4 days a week, signed by everybody that goes. You get such a wonderful sense of fellowship, guys and gals. I'm telling you. Those people that were your friends, that you partied with, that you drank with the exception of a few, like the ones sitting next to me, they're not your friends. They don't give a shit. I have true, deep friendships with people. I know that if I ask for help, I get it. They know if they ask me to do something, I do it. Not only for my friends in AA, but the friends that I've been blessed with in my life. And I strongly suggest that you embrace this opportunity. And let me tell you, life is still a hell of a lot of fun. And I don't have to worry about where my car is. I don't owe apologies to people. And, I live a pretty good life. So, thanks for letting me share. I think for a topic, maybe willingness, Eric. Okay.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.